Move on now because voting is underway in Colombia in the first presidential elections since the 2016 peace deal that ended 50 years of civil war. Opinion polls suggest those most likely to go through to the second round in June are the right-wing candidate Ivan Duque, who opposes the deal, and the former left-wing guerrilla Gustavo Petro, who favours it. Following events from neighbouring Brazil is our South America correspondent Katie Watson. She told us more about how it could all work under each of the candidates if they get to the next round.
I think these elections really show the division, the polarisation in Colombia. On the one hand, you've got Ivan Duque, who's a protégé of former President Álvaro Uribe, who's very against the peace deal. And on the other, you've got Gustavo Petro, a left-leaning former mayor of Bogotá, who's much more pro the peace deal. Because these are elections that are no longer in the midst of conflict, they have been able to campaign on other things, such as inequality and corruption. But at the end of the day, these two candidates, and although Gustavo Petro is the second in line, there are other left-leaning candidates who are gaining on him. So it's not 100% clear he'll be the one going through, although Ivan Duque on the right is pretty certain for the second round. But it really just shows the division between the left and the right in Colombia.
Katie Watson there. China has accused the United States of infringing its national sovereignty after two American warships sailed close to the disputed Paracel Islands. China, which controls the islands, says its forces had to warn the US vessels to leave the area. In a statement, the US Pacific Fleet said it regularly conducted freedom of navigation operations in the area, and it would continue to do so. Pressure is mounting for Northern Ireland to liberalise its strict abortion laws. It follows the historic referendum in the Irish Republic that overturned that country's ban. Ireland's Prime Minister says that result means his country has come of age. Chris Page reports.
In Dublin today, people are considering the outcome of what was a defining vote on a touchstone social issue. For many years, the Catholic Church's strong opposition to abortion was reflected in the law, and churchgoers this morning were disappointed.
Perfectly hate the kids being aborted. I couldn't vote for that.
Well, I'm disappointed. You can see I have a no badge there. It was the majority spoke, and we have to agree with the wishes of the people, so it's back to the government and to see what they do now with it,
But the referendum resulted in a landslide. Abortion has been illegal in the Irish Republic unless a woman's life was substantially in danger, but 66% of voters supported the case for change. Ministers are now set to bring forward legislation which will allow terminations for any reason until a woman's 12 weeks pregnant and in some circumstances afterwards. But the huge shift here has raised questions about the situation in Northern Ireland, where abortions are only permitted if there's a serious or permanent risk to a woman's health. Sinn Féin say there should be more access to terminations north of the border.
This has very much been a national debate. People the length and breadth of the island have been talking about how we need to support women. Our policy is the same from the north of Ireland right to the bottom of Ireland. We want to see the same policy. We need to show care and compassion towards women.
Northern Ireland's largest party, the Democratic Unionists, are opposed to any change in the law. The devolved government at Stormont collapsed more than a year ago. A number of MPs from several parties think Westminster should pass new legislation for Northern Ireland, but government sources are stressing the priority is to restore devolution so local politicians can decide on the matter. Campaigners in Belfast who want to keep the current law say they'd resist any attempt to alter it.
The demand for abortion as a choice depends on the dehumanisation of unborn children. We have existing recognition for unborn children in law, and that's the way it should be.
We made history!
The abortion referendum was a highly significant and symbolic moment for the Irish Republic, but it will have an impact on politics across the whole island and in London. Chris Page, BBC News, Dublin.
The Democratic Unionist Party was the largest in the last Northern Ireland Assembly. Its leader, Arlene Foster, has released a statement. She says Friday's referendum has no impact upon the law in Northern Ireland, but we obviously take note of issues impacting upon our nearest neighbour. The Republic voted to overturn a constitutional amendment, but no such bar exists in Northern Ireland. The legislation governing abortion is a devolved matter, and it is for the Northern Ireland Assembly to decide. And she adds The DUP is a pro-life party. It is an extremely sensitive issue and not one that should have people taking to the streets in celebration. Well, our political correspondent, Eleanor Garnier, who was in Westminster, spoke to us a short while ago.
Well, abortions are not allowed unless there is a serious risk to a woman's life, or if there is risk of serious or permanent damage to her physical or mental health. Rape, incest, fatal fetal abnormalities are also no reason for a legal abortion in Northern Ireland. Women can travel away from Northern Ireland to have abortions. There's no restriction on that. But as it stands, with that historic vote yesterday, Northern Ireland currently has the strictest rules when it comes to abortion across the United Kingdom as well as the Republic of Ireland.
Eleanor Garnier in Westminster for us. Stay with us here on BBC World News, still to come. Real Madrid's victorious Champions League team return home with just a trophy to declare at the airport.
In the biggest international sporting spectacle ever seen, up to 30 million people have taken part in sponsored athletics events to aid famine relief in Africa.
The first of what the makers of Star Wars hope will be thousands of queues started forming at 7 a.m.
Taunting which led to scuffles, scuffles to fighting, fighting to full-scale riot, as the Liverpool fans broke out of their area and into the Juventus enclosure. The Belgian police had lost control.
The whole world who will mourn the tragic death of Mr. Nehru today. He was the father of the Indian people from the day of independence.
The Oprah Winfrey Show comes to an end after 25 years and more than 4,500 episodes. The chat show has made her one of the richest people on the planet.
Geri Halliwell, otherwise known as Ginger Spice, has announced she's left the Spice Girls.
Ah! I don't believe it. She's the one with the bounce, the go, girl power. Not Geri. Why?
Welcome back. You're watching BBC World News, the latest headlines. After a meeting with North Korea's leader Kim Jong-un, South Korea's president says Mr. Kim is committed a proposed meeting with President Trump. And the people of Colombia are voting in their first presidential election since the government's peace deal with FARC in 2016. Groups monitoring the arrival of migrants into Europe say there has been a sharp increase in the number of people crossing the Mediterranean from Libya to Italy. A ship run by SOS Mediterranee and Doctors Without Borders has rescued 70 migrants, including 15 women and 4 minors off the Libyan coast. Among them, a baby called Miracle, who was born on board the ship. Sadaba Haidere reports.
An unusual sight on board a search and rescue migrant ship. These Libyan migrants are celebrating the birth of Miracle, the first baby boy born on the humanitarian ship this year. The singing and the dancing is a far cry from the conditions they say they have come from in Libya. The bright spot came as the tide of migrants risking sea crossing from Libya to Italy have increased by 85% this year, including more than 1,800 migrants in the past 3 days. That's despite the Italian government providing support to the Libyan Coast Guard and to towns along the coast to stop migrant boats.